Good afternoon, everybody. Just before we get started, if you don't mind, if I could just ask everybody to ensure that they are on mute and also to turn your cameras off. We're just trying to preserve the bandwidth during the session. Thank you very much. So welcome, everybody. I want to start, as is our tradition, to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and offer a warm welcome to all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends who are here with us today. And a big warm welcome to you, to the members of the RegTech Association, our special guests, including our Chair Julian Fennick and Board Director Jasper Pose, as well as our fantastic RegTech presenters today from One Wordflow, Clause Match, Cognitive View, Digital X Drawbridge, Money Catcher and My Compliance Office. I thought I'd kick off today with a little bit of a description on why we developed this program. Just before I kick off, for those of you that have just joined us, if you wouldn't mind switching off your cameras and just making sure that you're on mute. We're just trying to preserve some bandwidth. Thank you. So this program really came about through a dysfunction that existed in the industry. There was no good forum or format for regulated entities, regulators and regulated institutions to come together to explore the opportunity of RegTech. And so these RegTech Edge programs have been very well attended over the last couple of years, and it's become one of our premium programs, if you like. And we are certainly seeing record numbers on these programs. So they were really designed to bring all parts of the ecosystem together to understand the opportunity. And so my ask of you today is how you can help us make this session work really well over the next 60 minutes. And that is by getting involved. That is by asking questions. Now, how we're going to do that is that we're going to do that via the chat function on Teams. So if you could ensure that you ask a question on the chat. After each presentation, there will be a brief Q&A, and if we run out of time, don't fear. Make sure your question is on the chat, and we'll be asking our presenters to go live on the chat and answer those as they come through. And also don't forget to provide your contact details if you would like further contact beyond the end of the program. So let's kick off to talk about conduct and culture. According to Thomson Reuters in their Cost of Compliance 2020 report, culture and conduct risk were amongst the top 3 of all risks identified in that research. The biggest culture and conduct risk facing firms was creating a unified compliance culture. And from that piece of research, they said that 34% of the firms that they surveyed said that they had discarded a potentially profitable business proposition due to conduct or culture risk concerns. And this ticked up by another 6% from their earlier research in 2018. And from the RegTech Association's perspective, we've just completed some industry research which will be published in early September. And what this has clearly showed is that regulatory pressures, internal digitisation and automation, and cost pressures were probably the 3 top motivating factors behind buyers' interest in RegTech. And these 3 things, I think, go to the heart of what great RegTech can do and what we're going to see today. And amongst those things, RegTech can help create a better culture of compliance, make processes more efficient and productive, improve visibility of your conduct and culture, get more transparent information to give better consumer outcomes and to build stronger businesses. This week, we've also been convening a global series of workshops that have included trade, investment regulators and government representatives who, when we polled them, overwhelmingly agreed that this pandemic is driving more of their appetite around digital adoption. So I would say that right now we are definitely in a perfect storm. As many of you will know, last year we introduced a new taxonomy, And this was to help the global universe find the right RegTech solution assessed against their risk. And I'm happy to say that yesterday, or last night actually, we launched our new visual member directory based on these risks and based on this new taxonomy. So if you are a RegTech buyer on the line today, why not go online and check that out? Today, we're going to show you a very diverse range of solutions that speak to this area of conduct and culture. And we are going to bring 6 of these RegTech firms to life. And if the calibre of those attending today is anything to go by, we know for certain that conduct and culture is high on the agenda right now. We have taken 250 registrations from 19 countries. Significantly, 30% of the attendees today are from regulated institutions. We have regulators from 3 different countries on the line. We also have a representative from the pharmaceutical industry on the line today as well, who's very interested in the work that we're doing. So I think that what we're seeing as a general trend is that we've got a lot more interest in these programs. So thank you all for your attendance. So now let's get underway with the showcase. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce these 6 companies one by one. Each of them will have 5 minutes to do their presentation, and I'm going to we have to strictly stick to that 5 minutes. Following each 5-minute session, there will be a 2-minute Q&A. If we run out of time, which I can tell you from experience is highly likely that we will run out of time, make sure that you pop your question on the chat, because it will be there for that presenter to go back and address once their presentation is done. And make sure that you make it clear who your question is directed to. We've got Hong in the background who's going to manage the slides. So the presenters only need to say next slide and Hong will move those. And Alison is going to manage the timekeeping. At 4 minutes 30 presenters, you will receive a warning that sounds like, that's it. And that is your cue to wrap. And at 5 minutes, Alison is going to start singing opera. So that is your, that will be when we drown you out, just like the Academy Awards. So I'm just giving you fair warning. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to the stage, Hong, if you could move along to the first presentation, please. Thank you. I am delighted to introduce Bruce Wren from One Wordflow. By digitising and classifying and cross-referencing policies and regulation, One Wordflow can transform your ability to manage your risks. And I am now going to hand to Bruce, and he's going to explain more. Thank you very much, Bruce.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Deborah, and welcome everybody. We're very proud RegTech, but we also work across lots of other industries because we work in the area of documents. Now, we're going to take you on a journey because we don't see a document the way you've seen a document for the last 30 years. We see the information inside documents, not the documents per se with all their formatting. So we imagine a world where you can get to any page of any document in any language instantly on any device. Next slide, please. This is a problem right around the world obviously in financial services, but I heard there's some people from pharmaceutical on the line today, but we talk to engineers, we talk to government, etc. We're dealing with policies and procedures and contracts and product disclosure statements and Royal Commission reports, etc. And all the information is in a 30-year-old format called PDF. And there are now 28 million PDF and Word trillion documents in the world, and we can't find stuff. So the thing is, the reason we can't find it is because it's locked up in these formats that are linear, that require you to scroll through after searching for, a 100-page document. You have to get 100 pages or nothing. Next slide, please. You're all used to creating information this way. You create it in your Word document, you put it into SharePoint, cut it into PDF, load it up into a folder, and the customer comes in and downloads the document. Next slide. We get rid of all that, we go straight to the fact that every web page, every page of every document is now a web page. You go in via a browser and you're one click away. So you can be in a policy or a procedure, etc. Next slide, please. So we've got some super case studies in this, but I'm going to concentrate on two of them. The first one being the new payments platform. Next slide, please. Now, the NPP are doing the payment rails for the banking system in Australia, replacing the SWIFT system. Their shareholders, the 13 large banks that make up, and all their members, of course, all of whom have, a great vested interest in how this is going to work. Can you hear me all right? Sorry.
All good.
Okay, so they're dealing with procedures, they're dealing with regulations, they're dealing with guidance notes, there's back office considerations, there's implementation guides. Next slide, please. And so this is very typical of the sort of situation they're in. You're trying to line up regulations and policies with training material, with compliance, lining up 4 different sets of PDF or more. In their case, thousands and thousands of pages. We call it download city. And then you try and manually cross-reference the regulations with the policies, with the compliance, with the training material. There's version control problems, there's duplicates. And of course, this is all stored in Excel control documents to try and work out whether references should correlate. We think that is antiquated. We think it is a nightmare. We think it is smart people doing dumb jobs. So next slide, please. So what we've done is we can take a 100-page document and in 1 or 2 minutes turn it into a 100-page website, so that now you can go to any page directly. Any page in your knowledge base has its own URL. It has an address, which means I can share it with anyone, anywhere on the planet. Now, in the case of NPP, in just a couple of months, we went from 3 users to over 500. The thousands of pages are now in one website. Every one of those is a click away. And of course, there's references, correlations between policies and procedures, etc. We just build a link between one URL and another. Next slide, please. Now we have, I'll just talk a little bit more about NPP before I move to this. So thousands and thousands of pages there. And so we're, of course, now permeating all the banks to do the same thing. Now, we took another industry, in this case, the Aged Care Royal Commission. The Aged Care Royal Commission came out on something that's troubling a lot of people, of course, in the country. You know, it's COVID has really decimated our situation in aged care centres. But in this particular case, the 3,050 pages that made up the Aged Care Royal Commission are impenetrable. They are now a 3,000-page website with any page click away. Okay, next slide, please. So if you now look at what does it mean, analog versus digital, there's no classification in an analog document. You have to download it. There's endless scrolling. It's only in one language. You can't link stuff. It doesn't work on a mobile. You can't relate it to other documentation. All those things are changed with web. And so whether you're in engineering or in regulation, or whether you're in policy, or whether you're in any different industry, this is absolutely amazing. One click to any page. So we're working with lots of companies and we'd love to talk more.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. So I wanted to kick off with a question, and I would encourage those on the line to please pop a question in the chat for Bruce, but I'm going to start you off. Why is one word flow the Netflix of documents?
Thanks, Deb. In fact, I love the next slide actually, because I actually have a slide on that, which is it's cool. Go maybe the next one more slide. Maybe go back to that one in a minute. 10 years ago, we'd all go down to Blockbuster to get a movie for the night, and in the room there'd be 1,000 titles. There'd be 30 copies of the popular ones. These days, Blockbuster has gone, replaced by Netflix. The movie is still the same, but instead of having millions of copies of that movie around the world, there's one copy that's streamed in real time. We're streaming documents to you in real time by providing a web-based view on your knowledge base. The analogy also follows through for music on Spotify, but that's really the reason, Deb. You're going on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry. I'm having a few technical difficulties here, but anyway, here I am. I'm back. Yes, thank you for that. It's a very good point, isn't it? Because that used to be the way that we lived our life. And I don't know whether you mentioned it, but I do know that as well, that you can translate some of this new digital format into multi languages too as well, can't you?
One click to any of 100 languages instantly.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
And we
I'm
have
sorry.
one where there were 30 branch offices in different countries, and there's one copy of the policy and procedures.
Right. Bruce, there's quite a few questions on the chat. So if you don't mind going to answer those, and I do apologise, everybody, we are using a new version of Teams, and the alarm is sounding, and I am trying desperately to work out how to turn it off. Thank you, Bruce. If you could get onto your questions, that'd be awesome. Now I would like to invite Danny Gall from Clause Match to the virtual podium. Clause Match empowers organisations with cutting-edge policy management and regulatory change MT technology that embeds the culture of compliance in the DNA of a business to run it safely and meet compliance and risk obligations. And we're welcoming Danny all the way from London. Thank you, Danny. If you can just take yourself off mute, and you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I've just finished my breakfast, so if you see me getting my tongue twisted between my teeth, that's me getting my breakfast out. Good day, everyone. So I'm from Clause Match. Clause Match been around a little while in the RegTech space. We are specifically focused around conduct and governance. If you go to the next slide, please. We have built a solution, actually, in a way quite similar to the last presentation, but somewhat different in many aspects as well. Clause Match was built out the frustrations of working in a bank and not having systems that worked in the right way. And this was very much, we came from a legal background and then we moved into compliance and risk. Right now in organizations, there is more regulations than ever before. Since Sarbanes-Oxley 2002 till now, we've got thousands more regulations every single day that are changing. There are more silos within organizations every day, more systems in organizations every day. Some of them are legacy, some of them are internal, some of them are external vendors. But a lot of the time they are not speaking to each other. We also come from a document management space. We're approaching a problem around compliance of risk documents. And today people are still using SharePoint systems, Excel, Word, and Google Doc type functionality for compliance and risk. And we see some of that functionality is really good for organizations, but not fit for purpose for compliance and risk. If you just go to the next slide, please. So what do we see? Today, there is a lot of static manual compliance and risk documents sitting in different internal places, repositories, but they're static. And what we've done is we've built a proprietary collaboration editor. Okay, so it's very different. These are not static documents in an organization. We're taking documents and we're putting into a structured database. And then I saw a question there from Ranjan around ML. Yes, that's exactly what Clause Match do. We then provide AI ML to that document, so I'll explain that in a bit more detail. Next slide, please. The two core use cases for us, we work with highly regulated businesses. We also work with regulators who are looking to digitize regulations. The two core use cases for us is one around regulatory compliance management. So this is how do you manage your self-assessments, your obligations, how do you manage the actual regulations in your system directly? And then also how do you integrate and link in, we work with third parties that horizon scanning tools and regulatory alerts tools and link those in. So you're able to see what changes in regulation, how does that affect our organization, what are the obligations we have to do, and then linking that to our internal policies, procedures, controls, risks, into client-facing documents. The second core use case for us is around policy management. This is all around single source of truth. This is all around real-time collaboration across your organization. There's two sides to our policy management solution. One side is compliance and risk people. These are people that are collaborating on documents before publishing them to their employees. And the second is publishing to their employees and their employees accessing and attesting to that. I'm actually going to take you through a few screenshots and let you see the platform in a bit of detail. We are an open API. We work with a lot of our RegTechs. Typical integrations for us is to GRC providers. I won't name them all here, but the general GRC providers that you'll be familiar with. And then the other one is to horizon scanning tools, so tools that help you with updating of regulations. And we are working globally. We're not country agnostic. We're working in Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, all of the Malaysia. We've got clients in all of these countries, but also globally, US, Europe, UK as well. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot. This is actually once you've got the system up and live, what we've built, because we've essentially taken static documents and put it into ultimately a database that feels and looks like documents. You're able to interlink content together. And what's very unique about clause match is you're able to do that at a paragraph level. So no longer a 400-page document linked to a 200-page document and say these are connected. Now you're able to say clause 3.4 on the policy is linked to the regulation clause 7.2. And when the regulation changes, so does the policy. So this is a snapshot showing regulations to policies to controls. This can be any myriad of interlinks, so it doesn't need to be policies, controls, and regulation. It could be any others. And next slide, please. I'm not going to take you through all of these rather than rushing. This is our real-time editor capabilities. It has everything you will need to do as a compliance and risk team. And I will, next slide, please. I'll just flip through. You should be able to get access to the slides. We have full versioning, audit control around this also. You can see who done what, at what time, who had access to what at which level as well. I'm going to pause there so I don't try and rush through another few slides, and I'll pass back to you, Deb.
Thanks very much, Danny. You know, the matter at hand today is actually talking about culture and conduct. And so I did want to lead with a question. There's also some questions on the chat for you to answer, but are there any recent examples of regulators demanding that companies bring compliance into their culture?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I've been in the RegTech space, compliance space for about 15 years now. And there was a big focus on KYC and AML. And of course, there's still a big focus on KYC and AML. But I'd say the last 5 years, there's really been a huge focus around conduct, governance, how organizations are doing that. Things like SMCR in the UK, the BEAR regulation in Australia, MIC regulation in Hong Kong, MAS are providing new guidance in this space. Department of Justice just released guidance, which basically said you need a solution that has all of this in place. But a much bigger focus on systems and control and conduct is where we're seeing the regulators starting to focus globally.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, there are some people in the audience who have some questions for you. So if you could go and address those on the chat, that would be awesome. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to now invite Dilip from Cognitive View to the virtual podium. There he is, Dilip. Lucky Dilip is not in lockdown anymore like we are. So Cognitive View monitors customer and employee communications to automate customer experience and conduct risk. And so Dilip, without further ado, when you're ready.
Yep, thank you, Deborah. Next slide, please. So to give you a bit of a background, so Cognitive View was started in 2018, looking into a lot of this widespread misconduct challenge in the financial services industry. And as part of this Royal Banking Commission inquiry, what we have seen is like someone who is mentally challenged has been sold a life insurance product over a cold call, you know, bad financial advice being given to customers who are elderly and most vulnerable part of the society. And the insurance claim rejection rate has been all-time high. And because of COVID, also the customer complaint has gone up significantly. And to add another dimension to that problem, now a lot of the staff which are customer facing working remotely. So that creates a lot of challenges for companies to actually now monitor effectively about compliance and regulatory requirements. Next slide, please. So what we have done is, so we have built this platform looking into some of these challenges. It's not limited to just financial services industry, but applicable to all the other industries like utilities, telco. So we have embedded a lot of obligations and policies in the platform. So for example, the obligations that comes from the conduct regulators like ASIC, your industry code like your banking code of practice or GI code of conduct, any of your corporate policies, as well as hundreds of those behavioral patterns and abuse detection or customer fairness, all those challenges that we've seen in the industry. So we have developed a lot of these policies in the platform. And what we allow you to do is sort of select those policies that you care about and then select or link it to those actual contact center or the controls that you want to use. So in this case, we are not limiting it to just contact center, but it also you can elaborate to the collaboration channels like Cisco WebEx or Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or chatbots. Now that's very relevant post-COVID because a lot of people are working remotely. So once you sort of select and map this out, it essentially the platform uses voice and text-based analytics to allow you to actually monitor it. And so it produces variety of analytics, things like customer experience and complaint and also quality, looking into whether your staff is meeting the requirements or the guidelines that you provided, but also looks into compliance and conduct risk. So again, so it kind of produces a lot of incident and breach that allows you to sort of continuously not only monitor, but to do some remediation as you go. And we have actually deployed it to customers in the contact center environment where typically they do a lot of listening of the call center, staff's recordings and everything, but and they can only cover 3 to 5% on general, but now because of this automation, they could cover 100% of it, which saves them a lot of time, money, and also meet their compliance requirement. Next slide, please. So I think the couple of things I wanted to highlight here, what we actually enable as part of the platform is, one is that the complaint, we have kind of created a framework that links it to your conduct risk strategy, which is very essential. And complaint where we actually predict a lot of these customer concerns and complaint early. So we have built a lot of capability in this space that essentially allows you to meet those RG271 requirements that's due in October 5th, but also resolve it faster as well as prevent the complaint ending up with the ombudsman body, because that's really important to take that timely action. The second is the conduct risk definition. So although we have taken a lot of the best practices from FCA, ASIC about what the conduct risk means, but we also allow you to actually define what conduct risk means to you. And that is contextual, it's very specific to your business. And the third is risk-based supervision model. So we basically are supporting, we allow you to sort of define each policy you can define what risk, what's the risk criteria for each of these policies, so that you can actually do some remediation on an ongoing basis. So instead of looking at a tick box based model. The last is like, how do you kind of embed a risk culture in the workforce? So that's where we have built some framework to actually automate that, but also for you to measure and predict it. So the next slide, please. So we have deployed into a number of customers and now expanding into globally, supporting the US and the UK regulations as we speak. We have certified our technology in a number of marketplaces like Genesis, Zoom, which you can go and find, as well as we've been voted as RegTech 100 globally twice. So yeah, we are really excited to expand this further. So happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dilip. You get full marks for being just under time. Well done. So I do have a question for you, and it relates to RG271 amongst other obligations which will be due in October of this year here in Australia. How do you support complaints as part of conduct risk?
Yeah, I think when it comes to RG271, there are certain SLAs that needs to be met. So I think one of the challenges that we have seen is around data. So where, if you have actually the real-time information about the customer conversations, what has happened through the life cycle of the customer, whether it's the sales, post-sales, or claims process, then the IDR or EDR team can make a faster and better decisions. So we integrate some of this conversational analytics into your IDR system that allows you to have that real-time data. The second is to look into the external data points that allows, for example, AFCA has published a lot of determination data. So we have built some frameworks that allows you to sort of understand some of these patterns and learn from AFCA how they made decisions, in what circumstances, and kind of apply in your IDR and EDR situation. So that's kind of how we support RG271 requirements. So you're muted, I think.
There we go. That was a great presentation. Thank you very much. If you have a question of Dilip, please do put it on the chat, and I know that he'll be delighted to answer that. Thank you. Thank you, Dilip. We're moving along to our next presenter, inviting them to the virtual podium. This is David from Drawbridge. Drawbridge takes corporate governance in the area of securities trading beyond a box-ticking exercise by promoting awareness of obligations among directors and staff through better access to information and improving safeguards to identity issues before they become a problem. Welcome to you, David. Whenever you're ready, you can start. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm David Barros, Chief Product Officer at Digital X Limited. We're a publicly listed company ourselves, so we've seen firsthand some of the challenges with managing and enforcing good governance systems and processes. And that's why we created Drawbridge as a digital platform to solve some of our own governance challenges, which we're now offering to other listed companies as well. Next slide, please. As a listed company, I'm obliged to quickly tell you that there's no forward-looking statements in this presentation. Next slide, please. Our vision is to become the digital governance standard for the world's 630,000 publicly listed companies. To achieve this, we help COSECs, General Counsel and CFOs of listed companies improve the trust and reliability in their governance standards using new technologies that enhance the processes for great governance outcomes. But let me, next slide please, share a story which illustrates the problem we solve. I'd like to introduce you to Albert H. Wiggin. Perhaps Wiggins' greatest accomplishment was that he was the president of Chase National Bank in the United States from 1911 to 1930. But what Wiggins most remembered for are his actions in 1929, where while president of Chase, he personally short sold so much stock in the bank that he was financially incentivized for it to collapse. And after the Great Wall Street crash of 1929, Wiggin made a profit of more than $50 million in today's money. But because there were no laws at the time, Wiggin actually did nothing illegal. And as a result of the huge public outcry, legislation was passed that was nicknamed the Wiggin Provision, which was enacted to prevent company directors from profiting from their company's demise. Next slide, please. So if Wiggin was trading today, he would have probably had to have completed a Securities Trading Policy approval form, which listed companies in most jurisdictions are required to have. However, they still largely rely on handwritten forms for the director or the employee to then self-regulate after they have approval to go and do the right thing. And they're often poorly organised, which creates risks that lead to accidental policy breaches. Next slide, please. And in fact, policy breaches occur more frequently than you would think. If you'd like to read more about it, I'll give a plug for our case study, which you can download at opendrawbridge.io. And ultimately, these damage corporate reputations, even though often they're because employees have misread their policy or had a lack of awareness. Next slide, please. So our solution is Drawbridge, which provides an application for directors, staff, and compliance managers to reduce these governance risks by digitising their securities policy. So from the directors or employees' perspective, they can go on and see when their restricted trading periods are, and then request approval digitally to trade, and then see a full record of all those approvals. Next slide, please. So end-to-end compliance managers can set up restricted trading rules when announcements are upcoming. They can create groups within the company to restrict certain individuals or staff and team members and not others, which, as I mentioned, they then use the app to make a request, and then either approval can be granted using the rules that have been set up or flagged for individual compliance review. Next slide, please. One of the unique things about our technology stack is that we're building with DAML, and we're one of the first companies to have access to the ASX's test DAML platform, which we're building on in order to embed governance rules and policy protocols into the transaction logic of trades themselves. I see this just as open banking has opened up consumer bank transaction data. The ASX DLT platform will be the share market equivalent in providing data about companies' securities registered to listed companies themselves. Next slide, please. We've started with securities trading policies, and we have a number of listed companies, including ourselves, already using Drawbridge to manage their insider trading risks. But we're building out a roadmap for complete end-to-end management of insider securities. This will involve everything from the issuance and management of employee incentive schemes, from offer creation, vesting, schedules, cancellation and management, to approvals and restrictions like I've described, to monitoring and trading of share trading accounts themselves. This will give companies holding visibility and trade auditability. Final slide, please. Thanks very much for your time. Please reach out to me if you have any intros to listed companies or partnerships, or just to hear your experience with ESS. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. There's already some questions starting to flow in for you to go and address on the chat, but I thought I'd kick it off by what have been some of the unintended consequences from implementing Drawbridge for yourself at Digital X?
Yeah, one of the pleasing and surprising things was the massive reduction in time for lodging a 3Y announcement, which is a change of director holder notice. So I think typically companies have 2 or 3 days to lodge that after a director has traded. However, because everybody had access to the information through Drawbridge, we were able to lodge that announcement within a few hours of the director getting approval and then making the trade. So that was a pleasant surprise.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. And if you don't mind just popping onto the chat, because there's lots of questions there for you, which is fantastic. Okay, next to the virtual podium is the lady in the eye of the storm, Ruth Hatherley from Moneycatcher. I'd like to introduce Ruth by saying that Moneycatcher unlocks new value and enables increased growth through intelligent mortgage data risk management solutions for finance organisations. Their Regchain platform empowers risk teams with customised real-time risk-based pricing through multiple distribution channels, product DDO and TMD compliance capabilities, and automated RMBS securitisation services. I won't say much more. I'm going to hand over to Ruth now to start her presentation. Thank you so much, Ruth.
Thanks, Deborah. If we go to next slide, please. Deborah's already done the introduction for me on the next slide, so that's fantastic. You've saved me 30 seconds, Deborah. Thank you. So Moneycatcher is your trusted RegTech innovation partner, and we aim to unlock new value and enable increased growth through intelligent risk management solutions, focusing on data that is related to mortgages and mortgage origination. Next slide, please. Our leadership team and broader team members have had significant experience in the management and assessment of mortgage data across its entire life cycle and value chain inside financial institutions. We've experienced the challenges firsthand of how this data can be siloed and static because of old legacy technology, and that data then becomes difficult. It's difficult with transparency, have to have transparency across the organisation, and certainly more broadly across the ecosystem that needs to understand not only the original value of that data, but the ongoing dynamic output or value of that data during the life cycle of that portfolio. Next slide, please. So through our experience, we realised that data falls into 4 pillars that we think that we can help provide technology support with inside financial institutions. We can provide real value in automating and transforming the processes for lending services in loan origination through our product pricing and confidence engine tool that enables real-time risk-based pricing, considers things like the CDR and DDO and TMD obligations, and enables those requirements in that data and couples that with things like LICSI data standards to provide the real-time offer of product and pricing during a loan origination application. Additionally, that data has additional value for the financial institution as it remains on that book, and we've automated the securitization loan pool identification process and ongoing reporting process for those loan pools and bonds, which would enable more bonds to be released to the market over a period of time for a financial institution. Next slide, please. By enabling your credit and risk teams and processes with real-time risk management services through Regchain, you are able to provide these benefits in your organisation. Regchain can enable you to align yourself with industry data standards, absorb things like the CDR API information, and find real new growth opportunities from that data inside your mortgage portfolios. Next slide, please. Because our solution is quite innovative and takes a new way of looking, a new risk culture in the organisation, we take an iterative and collaborative approach to engaging with financial institutions. We need to configure the solution to solve your challenges or strategic objectives. We like to collate the evidence during the initial engagement and to be able to find a real business case for your organisation, so the implementation of the solution delivers value from day one of production. Next slide, please. 3 examples of how we've done that in the market in the last 3 years are here on this slide for 3 of our services. In 2018 and 19, we worked with an Australian headquarters of a global bank to focus on the automation of the APRA quarterly housing report. We were able to automate the data merging from multiple source systems, be able to pass their internal security, legal and procurement reviews, and demonstrate not only that process could have 11 of the 14 steps automated, but actually identify new growth opportunities inside that portfolio by using information from third-party services. The second one of our use cases here is an early adopter program around our securitization service. The RegTech Association actually participated in this early adopter program along with some Big 4 banks, challenger banks, banking aggregators, and also a regulator to have a look at how we would be able to automate specifically the repo product reporting for the RBA and loan pool identification for the RMBS portfolios. Our lending service is our latest early adopter program that we've run with an aggregator in Australia to work on how we could demonstrate real-time pricing and risk-based decisioning offers for loans while they're being originated in flight. Next slide, please. Some of the way that our approach has benefited those organisations has led to some really great commentary from real market leaders here, both locally in Australia and more broadly in global organisations. It's proven our technology does take a holistic approach to data management, and our executive team have significant experience in the management and solutions of mortgage data and risk management. Next slide, please. So if you are looking for digital solutions to improve your mortgage data application and management processes, if you want to be able to automate your securitization processes or look to release more bonds into the market, or manage your overall portfolio in a more transparent and immutable way, then next slide, please, contact us at Moneycatcher to speak to myself or our award-winning team about how Regchain could help you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I do have a question. How can your product and pricing engine complement existing credit approval and pricing offer system and processes?
Yeah, so one of the challenges in the market today at the moment is that there's a little some challenges around channel conflict or the inability to be able to offer parity around products for mortgages into different channels across financial institutions and their lending partners. One way that Regchain product pricing and confidence engine can assist with that is that product pricing and confidence information can be configured inside the engine and be automatically offered up during loan origination application via an API to any channel, because the Regchain platform is actually an agnostic platform. So that is a real problem that's sitting in the market today, that is a growth problem or a service problem on the retail side of the bank, but a risk process is what is at the core of that challenge, and PACE can solve that challenge with our product pricing and confidence engine.
That's great, Ruth. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation. If there are any further questions for Ruth, if you don't mind just popping them on the chat, and I know that she'd be happy to answer those. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you.
We got through the storm okay. Excellent. So next to the virtual podium is Kellyanne from my compliance office. Thank you very much. Can we see you? Yes, there you are. Kellyanne from my compliance office has been in this industry for a number of years, and today she's going to present to you on why you should automate your employee and firm conflicts of interest compliance activities with a leading conduct risk software for financial services. Without further ado, Kelly, I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks very much, Deb, and great to be here with you all today. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Could you please go to the next slide? And there might be a bit of, no animation, good. Okay, well, based on a Thomson Reuters 2021 cost of compliance survey, similar to what you mentioned earlier, Deb, 50% of compliance officers expect their personal liability to increase due to regulatory pressure and are facing either decreased budgets or expecting their budgets to remain the same. This leads to an overwhelmed compliance department who needs to find a diamond. They need a solution to assist in simplification, lowering their risk, lowering cost, and being flexible to ongoing regulatory developments. My compliance officer's purpose is to be the solution and provide transformative technology for complete compliance. If you could go to the next slide, please. My compliance office is about helping your organizations enforce your core behavior standards. And we do this in a number of different ways through a number of different conduct risk modules available in our solution. But at its core, some of the key reasons customers come to us is for moving from paper-based processes for reviewing and reconciling employee trading activity. So we're able to achieve 100% digital trade capture of employees' personal trading activities through our platform. We're able to manually, firms are manually reviewing blackout periods and watch lists and security lists at the moment, but we can completely automate your blackout periods, watch lists, research, deal, and trading lists to ensure that you're getting alerted straight away to any insider or other types of personal trading risks. Firms are managing multiple Excel, Word, email, PDFs for their personal conflict activity as well. And in MCO, we're able to maintain those registers related to things such as employee licensing with the regulators such as ASIC, your external business interests and activities, any gifts, entertainment, or benefits that an employee receives, and importantly, particularly with some of the changing regulation we're seeing across APAC, close personal relationships and related party transactions. We can also take firm transactions, issues and risks that a firm might have in the deals that it's doing, material non-public information that it may come across due to the nature of its business, and manage the recording of the insider lists. This is particularly important for entities doing business with anyone in the EU or in India with regards to the market abuse regulations that we're seeing over there. And our solution helps to avoid swivel chair compliance and manual review for potential conflicts by really providing an integrated conflict of interest solution. All of these different modules, whether it's personal trading, deals, outside business activities, can instantly create an alert if a deal or conflict is generated across any of these different modules. Next slide, please. My compliance office has not been around, has been around for 13 years, I should say. So we're not brand new. We have over 450 clients, I think around 480 at current count, based in over 100 countries. And we cater for firms that are at less than 50 staff, some as small as 5 staff, to our largest customers, which are over 105,000 employees. And we've got about a 50-50 split between those small and large firms. Our solution is software as a service, so it's really easy, quick to get set up, and employees can have access to our mobile app to automate their compliance activities as well. We've been really proud of our growth over the last 2 years, where we've grown here in APAC. We now have a team of 6 staff across our entire region. You can go to the next slide. That's fine. We are trusted and proven as a solution provider in the employee compliance and firm trade surveillance compliance space. We have multiple leading asset managers and banks in Australia, as well as asset managers globally in Japan, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And that includes small private equity firms and hedge funds, as well as retail banks as well. If you go to the next slide. We would love to hear from you, whether that be because you're a similar solution provider or a consultant that could help us in the Australian market, or of course, you might be interested in our solutions, of course, as well. It would be great to gather your feedback and to grow our existing Australian business through this forum. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kellyanne. Right on the time. Thank you. So I might kick off with the question, and just a reminder, everybody, please put your questions on the chat, and I know Kellyanne will be happy to answer. But I'll kick off. Other than personal trading and deal compliance, what other areas of employee or firm compliance are you seeing trending right now?
Thanks, Deb. Yeah, absolutely. So core to our business has always been around personal trading compliance and securities compliance. But most recently, we've actually seen an increasing trend in firms needing to manage their employee licensing activity. So the authorizations, registrations, and licenses they need to be fit and proper in an organization. So our solution helps to manage and record those licenses and their fitness and proprietary assessments. And we're also seeing that extend into the regulatory regimes around SMCR and so forth as well. So we have some enhancements down the line with regards to more of the role-based assurance that firms are requiring to meet the various conduct and accountability standards across the region.
Okay, great work. Thank you very much for that. So we can probably move on to the next slide as I start to wrap up, but we will stay online right until 5:30 so that it gives us enough time for some additional questions to flow through, which I can see, Kellyanne, the chat's now going hot for you, so you can answer those questions. Thank you. The area of conduct and compliance, as we've heard, is conduct and culture, is really high on the agendas right now. And that's why we felt it was vital to bring you this program today. This is just a snapshot of some of the solutions in this space. So as I mentioned, you can please feel free to go on and have a look at the directory, but you actually got a great idea from 6 of our RegTech firms how they might be able to help your organisation. Could we just flick back to the previous slide, please, Hong? This is just a little bit of a snapshot of what we've got coming up in both these RegTech Edge programs. You can see that we'll be covering off on a number of those around data protection, information security, regulatory compliance. We're running our second one on AML CTF and another one on conduct and culture later in the year. So please do come in for those. And on the top, you can see our RegTech Open for Business programs, including our investor series, which is next week. So I'll leave those there for you. You can now go to the map if you would like, Hong. And so I just wanted to show our kind of famous member map, which you can see is getting really crowded. And I keep saying we need a new design for this. But essentially, that new directory that I was talking about will eventually replace this static PDF that we have here, to use one of to borrow something from Bruce's presentation. So we've now built this as an online platform, so you'll actually be able to go and filter and search on our directory for any one of these fantastic companies. Next slide. So if you, the people that presented today, the 6 firms, are all members of the association, and it is their right of membership to present in these forums. So if you would like the opportunity to do that, as I said, we had something like 60 or 70 buying people registered to attend today. And even if people were not able to make it, this whole session has been recorded and it will be available for downloading. So I think that that's the last slide. You can go there if you'd like to consider joining. I think that's the last slide. Yes, thank you. So what we'll do is we will stay online for the next 5 minutes, just to give everybody an opportunity to answer any questions on the thread. And I'm happy to stay on until 5:30 in case you wanted to stay online for a bit of a chat. So I'll call a formal close to proceedings, so we can stop the recording, but we'll stay online just so that we can answer any of those leftover questions. Thank you very much.